I work for a large manufacturing organization that has a penchant for mature hierarchy. As such, we have a lot of meetings for a lot of managers, and the whole enterprise would be better off if we had less of each. One such meeting I must attend, the area specific morning stand up, is really just an ego stroking exercise where the second level up manager makes his first line managers and support staff sit in a meeting for an hour. We could automate most of this meeting, and several other areas of our organization try to varying degrees, but then this feudal lord of management wouldn't get to see his fiefdom every day. I digress. It is a low to no value meeting, and as such I generally sit in my corner and quietly read social media, the news, or similar. But today, I messed up. I was reading one of my favorite Reddit stories for a pick-me-up to deal with another day of drudgery, and I couldn't hold in all my chuckles. Lord Manager stopped the meeting to demand what was so funny and wouldn't let me bow out gracefully. He insisted on getting the full scoop, and that is how I was allowed to tell the swamps of Dagobah to a score of senior manufacturing personnel, managers, leads, support staff, before most people ate breakfast. It was glorious and many unhappy faces were seen around the meeting room. Several breakfasts were skipped too. If you have not read the story, you can find it in the description. Warning: graphic content, bodily fluids, medical setting. This is anecdotal, didn't happen to me, or was made up completely, so I hope it still fits here. An older woman in a Hoa neighborhood painted her house a color, let's say it was navy blue. She received a notice from the association stating it was not one of the 10 or so colors that were on the approved list and would be fined if she didn't toe the line and get it repainted. She got a list of the colors, went shopping, and shortly after had each wall of her home painted a different color off the list. As this was not a situation the Hoa codes had provisions against, there was nothing the association could do even after the code was revised, as she had painted it before the change grandmothered into the old code. The Hoa didn't F with after that. When I was pregnant with our first kid, back in the 90s, I was put on leave from Home Depot, HD. My husband was the assistant for electrical, light, cloud and plumbing at the time at an HD. When inventory prep hit, he was having a tough time finding time to make the schedules. I was sitting at home on my very pregnant ass, so I took over scheduling for him. I made a very lovely rotating schedule with alternating weekends off and still followed set schedules and coverage. It was a relief for my husband, and no one needed to know he wasn't writing them himself. Less people were putting in requests, and I made sure no one got screwed. It was working great. But there was this on guy named Steve in electrical who was very good looking, dated a different cashier every week, and expected to get his way always. He was a bit of a pain to work with, honestly. Steve did not like my schedules and complained to my husband daily about, well, everything. Steve started putting in requests for specific shifts and midweek days off every week. This really messed up the whole rotating schedule thing. Husband said I didn't have to give him all of his requests, so quite a few of them were ignored. Evidently, Steve was pissed because when I went to visit my husband at his store, Steve caught me in the hall by the break room and complained about how my husband was giving him crappy schedules. I just smiled and nodded, but then he started lying, saying he never got a weekend off anymore and that husband was playing favorites. I was insulted and very annoyed. So, I told husband and we decided that Steve needed to grow up a little. I changed the schedule for Steve so that he was getting all his requests, but that he was also working all the 3P12A shifts. Steve's griping stopped, and he ended up asking to be put back on the regular rotating schedule again. Clarification: if you work retail, you usually have to work crap hours. If you work retail at Home Depot, the crap hours are intensified minus 7 days a week. There are employees in the store almost 24 hours a day. To have a legit rotating schedule, with scheduled monthly weekends off for everyone in the department, is an anomaly. All but one of the 28 employees in the 3 departments were happy with the new schedules, and there were less requests because they could see what their days off were for the following week and could make their plans accordingly. When I worked there, I would have killed for this kind of confidence from my ASM. I left after 7 years, tired of bullcrap DMs and non-committal ASMs. So last year, I'd been working for big UK telco as a senior technical reporter for 16 years. All was well, I was highly qualified, my job dealt with local government, so I had clearance etc. I enjoyed it, and my company had supported me when I had to take 3 months off 2 years ago with a serious health condition. But then I got a new boss. Well, call her Helen. Helen was actually part of our wider team, a fellow reporter who was promoted. Actually, she was best friends with the senior manager, so the power went straight to her head, and she started reprimanding people for random things, like disrespect for questioning a process change which would double the time it took to do it etc. She wanted to make her stamp on the job despite it all working fine until then. Unable to deal with Helen, my colleague Jim hands his notice in. Jim is a technical architect, a role I did some years ago, before taking a sideways move into reporting. His customer is huge, and it takes him forever to do his job, especially with all Helen's improvements. Before he leaves, I get called into an informal chat which turned out to Helen informing me they're not backfilling Jim, they're making a cost saving, for which she will get a bonus. Instead, my role was to be, TADA, a technical reporting architect for both customers. But that's 2 jobs. I point out, which part of each are you proposing I drop to even make this remotely possible? We're not dropping anything. It's perfectly doable. But, despite whether you think is, I don't agree. I see Jim struggle every day. It's why he's leaving. I don't want to do 2 jobs. I have my health to think about. Oh please. You're not so special. She is literally scoffing at me now. I must point out here that my serious health condition was PTSD and a nervous breakdown after having a baby, watching my dad have a stroke, my mum being in a coma following a massive heart attack, and a friend committing suicide. She then goes on to say she doesn't believe in mental health, and I should prepare to have my handover from Jim. So I ask her to check with ours whether what she's doing is legal, as it's a change of role with no new contract. This really pisses her off. The meeting ends. A week later she hauls me into a stress review meeting which, when I arrived, was a reprimand. In order to try and be as maliciously compliant as she could, she'd written down all 11 things I'm supposed to have done wrong. The idea being, it'd end up being written up, and, should I betray her again, fired. Some of my crimes were being miserable. Yes, I got in trouble for being sad, refusing to take on Jim's role, and being awkward due to my so-called health problems. She faked a customer complaint. Turns out I wasn't the only one she did this to, not attending a meeting she ran weekly. I went back through my mail to find the email she'd sent me saying my attendance wasn't required as I used a different system due to my customer. She said I was skating on thin ice, and if I wasn't willing to pick up the extra work then why come back at all after Christmas? This was late December. Okay then. Day after New Year's Day I called in sick. She was right. I had no intention whatsoever of doing 2 jobs. I had 16 lovely weeks off with my family at full pay whilst I prepared all my evidence. Easy enough since she was stupid enough to email it to me to take the company to court for bullying. Her manager best friend would not reprimand her. It never got to court. The entire department was made redundant due to mismanagement, and on top of my redundancy package I was paid for the remainder of the year plus all my holidays. I got a better paid job the day after I handed my laptop in. My new boss is absolutely lovely and my new company treats me with respect, and I can see boats and ducks from my office window. She did not lose her job. Her friend promoted her to another department where she's universally hated, and back to her old tricks, even going so far as to ring ex-employees' new managers to tell them they made a mistake hiring them. Literally just to be a mean bitch. But hey, karma will get her in the end. The "you must get a doctor's note" post reminded me of a coworker MC to the employee handbook when out sick more than 2 days. Person was out 3 days with a confirmed illness. Ours told them to get a doctor's note. The following day, the employee brought the note to ours. Signed by a PhD. Since the handbook only said doctor's note, he was given a pass about the validity of the note. 5 days later, the employee handbook was reissued to all 12,000 employees. Only one word was added to that specific clause. Doctor was changed to medical doctor. So, thought I would tell you of a story of malicious compliance on the part of my father. Years ago we lived in a house, on a large plot house built up on the front third, leaving a massive rear garden, and in there at the bottom, was a very large avocado pear tree. Large tree, a good number of years old, and bore some pretty large pears every year. However, it had a split trunk, and also was tall, around 15 meters high, taller than the telephone cabling that ran along the bottom of the property, and which also ran through this tree to the house. Dad liked the avocado pears, though, because of the height of the tree, they only grew at the top, so he made a 6 meters long pole with a net, the swimming pool net pole with a broken net attached, in order to attempt to get at least a few undamaged. But this only got the lower third of the tree, and the top fruit would fall down in the wind, shattering on the ground. They also fell on the neighbor's property, and his roof had received a few holes from these missiles landing on it. But the neighbor and my father were firm friends, so would fix the holes together, but were getting fed up of this tree. So one day they both confronted my mother and insisted they trim the tree, and she eventually agreed. She insisted that they only cut down half the tree, and they both agreed to this. So, Saturday comes, Dad has rented a chainsaw, they have a nice sharp blade, a lot of strong rope, and the telco tech there, to repair the phone line. Again, when the tree snaps it. The neighbor and my dad talk about this job, and, as mother is out shopping, they come to the conclusion, along with the telco tech, that the best solution is to obey and cut half the tree down. Unanimously they come to the conclusion the best half is the bottom half, and I'm sent up the tree, lightest person, and we had the telco ladder to get me up 6 meters to where the trunk was still thick enough to be useful, as avocado wood is not the strongest wood, and even very thick branches will break easily. So, rope attached, chainsaw at the ready, and we all pull on the rope at a long distance, while the trunk has the notch cut, and the rear cut through till the timber moment fell roughly where we wanted it, just flattened a few banana stems that were in the way, but those would regrow anyway pretty fast. Telco tech said sladder again, and I attach rope again, and again tree fall in the right direction, this time tasking the phone line with it. Telco tech splices in a new section, and goes up the pole, to connect to the pole again, and leaves. Then we got the task of moving the chunks as they were cut, making a few piles of leaves and twigs for burial in the ground, and a few piles of wood that was left to dry as firewood. Dads and the neighbor cracked open some beers to celebrate this occasion as they finished up. Then mom came home and walked through to the back. She came down shouting what had they done. She had agreed to only half the tree, and they had cut it off at knee height. As one the neighbor and dad replied, with big grins, that they had indeed only taken down half the tree, and had decided the bottom half was the best part to remove, as it was easiest. Not their fault the top did not stay up there. Banana shrubs grew back fast, and we simply got avocado pears from the neighbor, as he had a few small trees that you could pick from easily, and we gave bananas from the harvest we had. His roof stayed intact, no more half-kilo missiles punching through the asbestos sheeting. Thank you for watching. Slap that like button and comment your opinion on these stories below. I'm waiting. Write that comment. Seriously. Have you written it yet? If you don't comment, you make a bunny cry somewhere. You're not that kind of person, I know. Anyways, peace out, and catch you tomorrow.